Good afternoon, everybody. It's Jim, it's Matt, and of course, we're here to talk football and anything else you want to talk about. Matthew, yesterday afternoon, when we did the show, you said um, that good teams find a way to win, even when they're not playing well.
Hmm.
And last night, we saw uh, two teams who were having some trouble, but at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield found a way to put the Bucs in the end zone and win a game 2019.
Yeah, really, really well executed last drive too. They
Hmm.
they put all the cards on the table when they went for it on fourth and long
Right.
early in that drive, and then after they got that fourth down, everything else just kind of fell into place. They didn't really
Hmm.
face any type of a difficult down and distance after that.
Hmm.
Baker Mayfield was able to do stuff with his legs and also through the air, and the offense just kind of worked for the first time
Hmm.
since really those first two drives of the game for Tampa Bay.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, part of the problem too was that you had a situation. Excuse me for just a second. Get a little water here. There we go. Where Tampa Bay's been playing the last 2 weeks without their starting tackles, both of them.
Hmm.
And Graham Barton, who's a phenomenal athlete, who is normally the center, was playing tackle, and he did play tackle for a year or two in college, but that was not where where his expertise landed. Um, so the goal was to keep Baker from getting killed, and they almost accomplished that.
Yeah.
But it was a wild situation, and you got to feel if you're Tampa Bay happy because you went on the road, play two teams that are legit playoff contending teams, won the games, and you did it shorthandedly.
Yeah, I think for Tampa Bay, the way they won though, both of
Mhm.
those games is impressive. Now,
Yeah,
granted, they needed the Falcons to miss that field goal in order to
right.
win in Atlanta, but it's the good teams find ways to win it,
Hmm.
and they found a way again. And I would say there's definitely some concern down there in Houston based
Hmm.
on some of the results last night. And I think the most alarming thing was there was a drive where they had first and goal at the 8, and they completed a
Right.
pass to Nico Collins, got down to the to about the 1.5 yard line.
Hmm.
They ran it one time, then they threw it twice, going
Right.
for it on third and fourth down. It you can't throw the football twice, or they need to have a little more faith in their running game.
Hmm.
Nick Chubb ripped off a decently long touchdown run later in that
Right.
game
Hmm.
that actually put them on top for the time being. But in terms of sequencing, your play sequencing can't go. If we know we're going four down territory here, we can't run it once at the goal line and then
Hmm.
give up on it after that.
Right.
You've got to do it at least one more time, and especially because they threw a fade ball to the corner on one of
Right.
them.
Hmm.
The other one was some kind of I think it was a little bit of a play action. I don't fully remember, but they ran some kind of crosser, and CJ Stroud had to wait for that thing to get all the way to the other side of the end zone before he threw it.
Yeah, they did. They ran a cross route, and what's perplexing about that is you're running a cross route in basically what, 11 yards,
Hmm.
because you got 10 yards of an of the end zone. You got one. You're one on the 1 yard line. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong. Nick Chubb plays for the for them. Why was not? I mean, he's a battering ram.
Yeah,
Okay, you didn't do it the first time. Fine. Okay, but Nick Chubb could do it himself.
yeah.
I, I don't know.
I think it's surprising given D'Amico Ryan's philosophy
Right.
generally too, because he's a defensive guy,
Right.
and I mean they have Nick Chubb, and
Yeah.
if you're going for it on four down, at least for my money, if I'm going for it on fourth down,
Hmm.
I would rather walk away having not scored a touchdown, running the ball three times from the one,
Right.
than the way they walked away from it yesterday, having
Right.
not scored that on that series. And
Hmm.
it's one of the crucial aspects to why they lost the football game. Little
Hmm.
stuff like that, some stuff can get lost in translation, but like
Right.
that matters. You didn't get three.
Hmm.
You didn't score any actually, and
Hmm.
you gave the Bucs the ball back, and all of a sudden you're playing field position again.
Right.
it's a mind-boggling sequence that like it just stuck in my head from that game.
Hmm.
How little faith they had in their offensive line and their running back to get that done.
Right. The other thing too in that game is that I- I'm not sure. I think C.J. Stroud is a tremendous athlete and a tremendous player. I'm not sure that he has the confidence to throw the ball where he throws it. He
Yeah,
threw 3 or 4 passes that literally bounced to guys who were open.
yeah,
Uh, how do you short arm a 20-yard pass? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And he's lucky he didn't get picked off because he threw a couple of those balls into deep coverage, and you're like, there's if there's 2 bucks on this guy, one guy's got to be open.
yeah.
So I still think he's got an issue with, and again, to me, it's progressions. He just doesn't look through his progressions.
And I do wonder if his progressions are impacted by his offensive line.
Could
Because
be.
there was one third down where they may as well have just not been blocking.
Hmm.
Like I think they had like 4 guys essentially come free for Tampa Bay and just sack him on what was a crucial third down.
Cla- Clancy comes in and tackles the guy for you know for a sack, and Clancy's got a bum arm. I
Hmm.
mean, he literally tackled him with one arm.
Yeah,
So how do you let that happen? I
and
mean,
so
this.
when you take away the time and a quarterback
Mhm,
doesn't feel like he has the ability to go through his progression and his
mhm,
read, you rush reads, you short arm throws, stuff like
right.
that.
Hmm.
Kind of in the same breath I was talking about Arch Manning
Uh
after
huh.
that first week at Ohio State, feeling
Right.
sped up.
Hmm.
I wonder if CJ Stroud doesn't feel sped up because of his offensive line. You know, they when
Yeah.
he got there, they had Laramie Tunsil as his left tackle. He's not there anymore. His
Right.
left side's not really well protected,
Hmm.
and they're going to have to learn how to move the football. That defense is still a championship caliber
It's
defense.
quality. Yeah.
You saw it on the back end. You could see it on the from the
Hmm.
pass rush too last night. The defense is going to be fine, but that offense has got to pick it up. It's got to be much more complimentary football for the Houston
Hmm.
Texans if they want to complete anything remotely close to what their goals were set at coming into this season.
Well, um, with the Buccaneers, for them to be 2-0 is amazing, given the fact that they could have easily been 0-2.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they lucked into anything. They didn't. They outplayed them
Hmm.
and they outcoached them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're either a pretender or you're somebody who can win. You're talking about CJ.
Hmm.
CJ reminds me of a very very young, very very green Lamar Jackson. Lamar had that problem when he first started at Baltimore,
Hmm.
but over time, obviously he has overcome it. It's not something that young quarterbacks don't have. C.J. Stroud has the ability to throw any ball. He's got the arm. He's got the legs to get away.
Yeah.
Uh, he's just confused, and I think to your point, part of it's the offensive line. I think the other part is the play calling. I thought the play calling was abysmal, not just on the
Mhm.
ground, on the 1 yard line, but throughout the entire game.
Yeah. No, they Houston has just it feels like a laundry list of issues right now, and one of them being the Indianapolis Colts.
Hmm.
And it's just when I think back to 2 years ago,
Hmm.
CJ Stroud's rookie year in the NFL,
Hmm.
it looked like there was a lot of hope in Houston,
Hmm.
and then the way they drafted in the years prior, they've done a really good job there. Kamari Laster's a fresh face on defense. Derek
Yeah.
Stingley's he came out of LSU. He's a more veteran presence in that locker room, but he's still relatively newer to the league. I
Hmm.
don't think he's logged more than 5 years of service time yet. Will Anderson, another guy they drafted. And so they've done a really good job in drafting. They drafted Tank Dell out of
Hmm.
Houston. He was really good until he had a really gruesome injury. I believe it was last
Hmm.
year.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be they have to figure out a way because this is their window. CJ Stroud is their window.
Right.
and he is the kind of quarterback. But you've got to get him back to the CJ Stroud of 2023, not the CJ Stroud of this year and last year.
Right.
You've got to be able to instill that confidence back in him.
Mm-hmm.
And people can there's you always are going to ride the wave, no matter how confident you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to ride a wave. And right now, CJ Stroud, it feels like is in a low spot of confidence, and you've got to find a way to reinstill that confidence in him because he has the talent and ability, and he has the football acumen to make the reads and know where the football is supposed to go, and pilot an offense that can win an NFC championship and lead them to a Super Bowl. But he's or an AFC championship and lead them to a Super Bowl. But he's not that guy right now. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it's simplifying stuff. I don't know if they've got to change some stuff up front, which, you can't go out and just automatically solve the offensive line in a season, via trades or free agency or anything like that. It's not something you can just magically fix. But something has got to change on that offensive side of the football for the Houston Texans. And it's going to start under center with CJ Stroud.
Um, it's got to, because you're absolutely right. Absolutely. It's got to do it. Um, the Harbaugh and Pete Carroll love affair reunited again for the 10th time. And this time, um, the guys who wore the helmets with the bolts on them came away. I mean, to me, I'll be honest, I did go fall asleep at halftime, but it
Yeah.
wasn't, the game didn't particularly, I didn't feel as if that the Chargers were going to lose that game. I don't know what the score was, didn't really care.
Yeah.
But after watching it for the first half of the game, I'm like, yeah, no, they're not going to win this game.
Yeah. Yeah. I got through some of the first half. I don't think I even made it all the way through the first half. But, I went back and looked at the box score this morning.
Mm-hmm.
3 interceptions for Geno Smith. That kind of tells you the story. That's all you're really going to need to know. If that secondary had their way with Geno Smith, they were going to have a really hard time winning that football game because of what we talked about yesterday. I talked about that offensive line and how they struggle to run block,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not the best, in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't become one dimensional. I mean, it's a broken record, and people say it all the time. But when you become one dimensional, you're doomed. You're doomed in the NFL, especially. College, maybe you can get away with it. Maybe you're one dimensional by choice, depending on how good your program is and who you're facing that day. But in the NFL, if you're one dimensional, you're pretty much dead. And they were. He threw 3 interceptions. You can't throw 3 interceptions. Brock Bowers was pretty much a non-factor. He hauled in 5. I think he hauled in 5 passes for 38 yards. That's not going to get it done from who's your top playmaker in terms of receiving. And on the Chargers side of things, that defense, I didn't realize this until they said it on the broadcast last night. They were number
Mm-hmm.
1 in points allowed last year.
Right.
I was not familiar with that. They suffered the loss of Khalil Mack, who looked like he may have broken his wrist or his forearm, something in there,
Right.
which is going to hurt him down the line. But man, the way that defense is played, I've been thoroughly impressed with the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
And I called it a no-name defense, and I
Mm-hmm.
stand by that because I'm not, aside from Derwin James, none of those guys are household names.
Right.
But man, they perform, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter, what your name is or anything like that. In terms of a defensive aspect, is can you play as a unit? And the Chargers do a really good job of playing as a unit.
I agree. All right. So we're starting to get Twitter questions,
Okay.
and and I I don't know. Somebody's drinking some very bizarre water here. Um, our buddy Big 12 Rant. We're going to college now.
Okay.
Says that the ACC will crumble, and that UConn, Notre Dame full time, Miami. Who else? Trying to he hashtags everything. Um, Miami, North Carolina State, uh, University of North Carolina, University of Virginia, um, are all leaving, but Notre Dame and UConn are going to the Big 12. I have there. I would bet the farm, if I had one, that would never happen. Either of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, hey, props to this guy. He's gotten some people's attention, by doing this. But no, that's completely unrealistic. Not only the ACC will crumble is the start of that issue, because I'm not saying that some teams may not leave the ACC down the road,
Right.
but predicting the entire conference to crumble is a wild accusation, especially coming from a Big 12 guy.
Yeah. Had it not been for the arrogance and utter stupidity of the big, of the Pac-12, they'd be together now, and you'd be looking at the Big 12 and going like, okay, well, who are they?
Yeah,
They're no one.
yeah. If the Pac-12 had kept their wits about them, the Big 12 is at the bottom of those P5 conferences,
Right.
looking up, going,
Um,
hey guys, don't forget about us.
yeah.
We're still here.
Jim Phillips is not a fool. Okay, he's not going to let that conference go away. Um, and you know what? I'd written a piece a while back where you've got, if you look at the schools in the conference, okay, um, let's say, for the sake of argument, that the big, and I know the Big Ten and Big and SEC, I have talked to a number of people within you know, in the conference.
Hmm.
The Big Ten only wants two more people if they want two more people.
Yeah,
Okay, that's it. Two. The you know the SEC may not want anybody. Okay, but again, if it's a deal, it's two. So what planet does it make any sense for all of these people to suddenly run to the Big 12 where they have absolutely nothing to show?
nothing to
Um,
gain either.
well, they've got no history. I mean, they're the one team that won a national championship in this present. You know, let's go. Well, we won't throw Oklahoma and Texas in there. But
Yeah.
before they got, well, Oklahoma and Texas was just SEC. What am I thinking? Before the four schools that went out there, it was BYU in 1984. Okay, so I the the arrogance of the Big 12 conference teams absolutely baffles me.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong here on two things. First off, their commissioner's Brett Yormark,
Right.
correct? Big
Hmm.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think when Oklahoma and Texas announced their move to the SEC, the Big
Hmm.
12 kind of went scrambling and didn't really know what to do. And had it not been for that Pac-12 crumbling, they made the moves that they made, but they weren't quality moves. Like they were who they had. They added BYU.
Cincinnati, BYU, UCF,
Yeah,
and Houston.
yeah. Those aren't moving the needle for anybody. Like
No,
that's not saving your conference. It's
that's
not.
backfilling.
Yeah, that's not even replacing. I don't even think that replaces a fifth of what Oklahoma and Texas left
No,
left
no, no.
behind. Yeah, they're total backfill moves. They got saved by the Pac-12 in essence,
Right.
and because they were scrambling, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. In fairness, Bob Bowlesby was the commissioner when they added those four teams.
Hmm.
Um, I spoke to Bowlesby. I'm happy. I mean, Bowlesby. I applaud him for what he did.
Yeah.
He found okay. He literally sits next to uh, uh, to Greg Sankey of the SEC in the conference meetings, and he didn't know Texas and Oklahoma were going anywhere.
Hmm.
So Sankey must be a pretty damn good, keeping a secret,
Hmm.
because nobody knew. Um, but he had to backfill. He had to backfill quickly, and I think he took what he thought was, four teams. Now Houston pretty much bought their way into it, but
Yeah.
okay, fair enough.
And
Um, the
to the
guts. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say to the credit though of a couple of those teams, UCF, coming
Oh,
into that in the especially in the
yeah,
late 2000s, they had their run and they were really good at
sure.
football. And Cincinnati was coming off of a playoff berth, the first
Yeah,
G5 team to make a playoff,
yeah.
and they were really talented. But expecting them to continue that success, especially with Luke Fickell moving on, would have been nothing short of a pipe dream.
Well, I mean, I I have no beef with the four uni- universities he chose. I mean, he got what he thought
The
was
best.
that the biggest problem that they had was selling BYU
Hmm.
because it changed the culture of how BYU being a religious school had specific needs and they were willing to accommodate it.
BYU was independent prior to that, weren't they?
You're right. Uh-huh. Now, it, I had mentioned when we were doing this way back when that the big get was BYU. And
Hmm.
the reason that the big get was BYU is they're an international brand.
Yeah.
They're going to drive TV ratings. So Bowlesby took a chance that he could piss off half of everybody in the conference by taking BYU and sticking them in there and accommodating them
Hmm.
to be part of the conference. I think, frankly, the linchpin for that four was BYU. Okay,
Hmm.
they had a national brand, so and none of the other three did, but that's okay. So Bowlesby steps down as commissioner. In Brett comes Brett Yormark. Brett's a promotions guy, okay,
Hmm.
a media guy, pretty savvy. Uh, so he goes and he calls ESPN and Fox, and he says, you know, is there a possibility that we can renegotiate our deal? Because they were in the window to do that. Well, they meaning ESPN and Fox had just met with Pac-12, and Pac-12 they offered the Pac-12 somewhere between 36 and $40 million per team for I think a 7-year deal.
Hmm.
And George Kliavkoff said no. Okay. Well, Brett said yes. He took the money. Okay.
Hmm.
So I mean, in some regards, Bowlesby helped put it in position. Nobody knew that the Pac-12 was going to fold, you know.
Yeah.
And to his credit, from his standpoint, Brett Yormark didn't overly sell it. Like, hey, we want you guys to come play for us.
Yeah.
He pitched it and said, look, it's up. They know where we are. If indeed this is what they want, we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
We're happy to have them. Uh, I literally was on the phone call not just me, Dennis Dodd from CBS, some other. We were on the phone call, and it was the morning. It was a Friday morning, and they meaning the Pac-12 was going to sign the deal with Apple.
Hmm.
Apple had made concessions to them to help get them some. They were upset about not having any linear broadcast. So Apple's like, look, we'll find a partner and we'll sort it out. We got a year to do this, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was not enough because overnight it was Washington and Oregon who cut a deal to take half a share to go to the Big Ten. Once those two teams bolted to the Big Ten, that left the two Arizona schools, Utah and Colorado, out on an island. Colorado was the first to jump, and then the other three figured, what the hell are we going to do? I mean, we got Cal and Stanford and us. Um, this is not tenable.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that they made a huge mistake. All right, SC and UCLA were gone.
Hmm.
All you're really losing is SC. UCLA has not been, UCLA for a while.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get back to that because they fired, Deshaun
Yeah. A couple
Jackson.
of head coaching moves we can cover too.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, they just panicked and went for the money, and it was stupid. And so to get back to Big 12's premise, um, I I don't see the schools in the ACC rushing to join. You might get Louisville, okay?
Mhm.
Maybe. You might get Louisville. You might get one other school.
What about
Maybe Virginia.
SMU fits in their blueprint.
Oh yeah.
At least.
Well, but SMU's in the SMU's committed. Everybody in that league is committed to a to 2036.
Yeah.
Okay. So my theory of the case was this, and I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Mhm.
The article I wrote was basically ACC 2.0. You get Syracuse, you got Boston College, you add Connecticut, okay? You got Pitt, you got the two Virginia schools, Virginia Tech and Virginia. Let's say, for the sake of the argument, that North Carolina goes.
Mhm.
Okay, let's say for the argument that who else from there would go with? Maybe we'll say that Miami goes. Okay, and FSU, Miami, FSU, Carolina, and Louisville leave. All right, you still have Wake, you still have Duke, you still have the relationship with Notre Dame.
Mhm.
What you now have is kind of, for all intents and purposes, the Ivy League of P4 football.
Yeah.
These are all, heavily endowed, heavily academic institutions.
Mhm.
And we always hear that football is the opening, is the front porch to the university.
Mhm.
That's crap. Okay, there might be, I think it's like 10 to 15% of kids decide to go to school based entirely on the college football program.
Yeah.
It definitely is not the case in the ACC.
Yeah.
You know, I forgot, by the way, Clemson. They would go. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, my theory of the case was, you got the two North Carolina teams. You got Wake. You got Duke. You got Pitt. You got UConn. You've got Syracuse, Boston College. You got Georgia Tech, and I would add Navy and Army in football only.
Mhm.
Academically, it's an amazing league. Secondly, there's a guy who is on the board of Duke University by the name of Tim Cook, who was with Apple. I'm pretty sure that Apple deal could come back. Okay. Only this time the ACC would be involved. The CW has been heavily, that's people really, if you don't know who the CW is, Scripps Howard owns it. Scripps Howard owns 117, I think, television stations and the CW. So they're all over the place. They would easily be a linear partner without any problems. Okay, so I don't foresee any reason for the ACC to bolt and to the Big 12 for any reason, even if they lost teams.
Yeah. No, I
So
mean, it's still a really good conference outside of football. Like it's I feel like the ACC for a very long time has been renowned as a basketball conference anyways.
yep.
Obviously you'd be losing the likes of North Carolina in that scenario, and Clemson's come on in the recent past, and Louisville has its basketball history as well, but they retain a lot of you know a lot of good schools when it comes to basketball as well, and all of the other sports as well.
Hmm.
Outside of that, it's the ACC is a really well balanced conference from top to bottom, sport to sport. They're not going to be the Big Ten or the SEC, but nobody's going to be the Big Ten or the SEC.
No.
It's a very clear divide from those conferences down to the next tier,
They,
and
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I feel like they have a better selling point than the Big 12. The Big 12 is just kind of a collection of schools that are all okay at everything. There's not a really like superpowers in certain spaces for the Big 12. And at least with the ACC, you have a bunch of schools. At least when it comes to sports, they're kind of like, maybe they're riding the middle ground on a lot of sports, but they still have academics to back them up. A lot of those Big 12 schools can't say the same.
Yeah, and the other part of the equation there with that is that, um, as you were saying, the it's the philosophy of what it is. Um, you you don't have a lot of schools in the Big 12 who look. I'm not saying that you can't get a good education in the Big 12 is ridiculous. Of course you can.
Hmm.
They're fine institutions out there. There's plenty of good reason to go to those schools.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
yeah. I say that not as a
But
knock on the Big 12,
no, no,
more of a
I
product
agree with you.
of
I
the
agree with
ACC
you. But
schools.
if I had to choose between schools, I mean, and universities, that I'm putting my money in, I'm going to put it in the ACC. I'm not putting it in the Big 12. Um, they have universities who just um, value sports more than they value academics.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm also not saying it's a good thing either.
Yeah.
You pick your school based. If you pick your school on base of athletics, then what exactly are you going to do when you graduate? Because
Yeah.
you're not playing football or
No.
basketball or whatever.
No. Yeah.
Um, we call them legacy schools, right? It's called cradle to grave. You go to a university. I'll give you one. SMU, okay?
Hmm.
SMU in the ACC. SMU is a cradle to grave school. You go to SMU, they're going to take care of you. There are alumni there. They're going to make sure when you get out of there, if you're a good student, you're going to get a job. I
Yep.
mean, that's what they do. I mean, they're a fine institution that takes care of their own because it's a small private school.
Hmm.
Um, I think that there's reluctance and possibly buyer's remorse from the four schools who were added from the pack. I mean, I have had numerous conversations with Utah people. They have no interest in being there. Okay,
Hmm.
they were like, it was like, what were we gonna do? I mean, we had nowhere to go, and this was what we did. Colorado, they kind of like being there. The
It's a
two Arizona schools have no interest at all being there.
yeah. For Colorado, it was just kind of a return to what they
Yeah,
were before they joined the pack.
sure,
So
sure.
that makes sense for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's philosophically, yeah, it does, but academically and on all other areas, and trust me, if they didn't have Prime come back over there,
Hmm.
I'm not so sure they would have been, too keen on rushing to the Big 12.
Yeah. Uh, I what I will say, at least in terms of like, and I don't doubt that the higher ups and stuff like that are not pleased with being in the Big 12, at least from those Arizona schools.
Hmm.
But at least in terms of Arizona State, and Kenny Dillingham has talked about it
Hmm.
this week, it's good for their football recruiting in
Right.
the simple sense of, five of their next six are against Texas teams, and Texas
Sure.
is one of their strongest recruiting bases over there
Hmm.
at Arizona State. And
Hmm.
so at least I know from that measure that it helps them in recruiting. But aside from that, I can't really speak to any of the pluses for the Big 12 for Arizona State.
And again, I don't want to be throwing mud on the Big 12. There's, you know, I have a ton of friends that are out in that area, and God love them. It's a great conference, good people. But this idea that we now can raid another conference. You didn't raid the one in the first place. I mean, you picked four, and four fell in your lap.
Yep.
So what exactly? But here's the thing: there's only a limited amount of money in this world now
Hmm.
in sports that broadcast companies can deal with because the falling cable has taken a lot of cash out of ESPN's pocket. It's taken a lot of cash out of Fox's pocket and others. Okay,
Hmm.
so am I? Where do I put my money? I've got a baseball contract that's coming up in 2028. I got an NFL contract that's coming up in 2031 or 32. I can't remember exactly when it's coming up. We just signed an NBA deal that was $76 billion.
Hmm.
Uh, how much money do you think we have? You
Yeah.
know, And I think that's where people are missing the boat here.
Yeah.
I think that the high water mark isn't going to be much more the next time around for either the SEC or the Big Ten. So my question is, if that's the case, why do you want to add more mouths to feed when you can't actually push the needle further than it already is?
Yeah. I do think it's, and this isn't just specific to sports and
Hmm.
the media rights deals and stuff like that. But like you see across the different leagues and stuff too, the
Hmm.
player contracts are getting more expensive and more expensive and more expensive.
Right.
And you have to wonder when, when does that stop growing? Because it can't keep growing forever and ever more. Like, you can't keep resetting the market on every position every
Hmm.
offseason. They reset the edge rusher market again this offseason. It feels like they
Hmm.
reset the wide receiver and the quarterback market every offseason
Right.
too, because somebody's always got a deal that's up. And when does okay, you've reset when do we stop resetting the market? Because we can't just keep going up and up and up and up. You can't keep having Juan Soto signed for $700 million. That's not realistic,
No.
especially across the MLB.
Right. And the other part of the equation is with all the NIL money and with the cap of $20.1 million from basically what it is basically is a revenue sharing deal.
Mhm.
Um, this whole thing is a bit of a house of cards. Um, you would likely see uh, them breaking off, them meaning football, break off to
Mhm.
the 40 or 50 best teams and create an NFL style, um, deal.
Yeah,
Because just as much as, look at this weekend, we talked about Northwestern, Purdue, and some of the schools in the Big Ten. Um, those schools are not leaving the Big Ten.
no,
So even if you add, a North Carolina and FSU or any one of the four that have been talked about out there,
yeah,
you're not adding anything that, Miami hasn't won a national championship since early 2000. Was this
mhm.
2001, 2002, something like that? So there you go.
Yep.
FSU's won one. Okay.
13. Yeah.
Carolina's never won one.
Hmm.
And forget who's the other school that we were
Clemson.
talking. Oh, Clemson. Clemson
Clemson.
has won, but
Yeah.
they don't fit your demographic at all.
No.
So what are they bringing to us?
Yeah.
And I think part of this is projection as opposed to actually. Tony Petitti's not stupid. Okay,
Yeah.
he realizes what he's got, and he realizes what you know they can get around the next time. And I
Yeah.
just don't see them, cashing in for big bucks. I don't see any reason. Am I leaving the ACC? I'm going to get around 30 to 35 million dollars, and let's say the Big 12 gets a bump to maybe 40. Okay,
Mm.
I'm going to leave for $5 to $10 million when in fact you know, it's going to kill me from a standpoint of travel and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
You
Um,
you might lose
there's no
a
need to.
portion of that on the back end of that travel and stuff,
Yeah,
getting teams to and from. Yeah, it's. I will say this is off the subject of the media rights deal. You're
sure. Go
talking
ahead.
about teams in the Big Ten
Hmm.
that aren't leaving. The UCLA's, the
Hmm.
Purdue, the Northwesterns of the world. I
Hmm.
think that was what was so frustrating when I heard all these people talking about the 9 game conference schedule past
Yeah.
off season. It's like, well, we play 9 conference games, so our schedule is much harder. No, it's not.
Right.
You've got those schools, and not that the SEC doesn't have bottom feeders, but I'll tell you this:
Right.
I'll take Kentucky, Mississippi State, and whoever else you want to throw in there as a Arkansas.
Right.
I'll take those guys on a field right now
Hmm.
versus the UCLA's, the Purdue's, and the Northwesterns of the world because they
Hmm.
just aren't good at football.
Um, So let's talk a quick bit. We don't have too much time left, but let's
Mhm.
talk a quick bit about UCLA yesterday. Um, Firing Deshaun, that's just like firing the cruise director on this Titanic. It's still going to crash.
Yeah,
Okay. You want to blame him for it? Go ahead. But
everybody.
personally, go
Yeah,
ahead.
everybody needs a scapegoat. He was theirs.
Yeah.
So.
Um, that's a university that is so far in the red they can't even see, you know, the line, right?
Yeah.
Um, by the way, Rutgers and a number of other Big Ten schools are in the same boat. So as far as losing money, but you gotta. UCLA was a once proud program, and you you got to go and decide. You know what? We're gonna we're gonna hire a CEO of sports because sports has changed, and
Hmm.
we're going to get rid of this group of people who clearly do not know how to run an athletic department.
Hmm.
And we need to hit restart, and restart means get rid of everybody and restart. And I think that's the only way UCLA gets back to any close to normalcy.
Yeah.
My article's up this morning about that. So
Hmm.
I don't see it happening unless they do that. I mean, otherwise you're just putting a band-aid on a 40-inch gash.
Yeah. You could kind of feel the direction that UCLA was headed, at least in terms of football.
Hmm.
When Chip Kelly left to go take the offensive coordinator job at Ohio State, when your
Right,
head coach is leaving to take a coordinator job at a
right,
different Power Four
right,
university, the same
right,
conference, nonetheless,
right.
that's got to be like how did some sirens not go off in people's heads and say, all right, we've got a massive problem on our hands. Something has got to change. But nothing changed, and they hired Deshaun Foster, and nobody expected them to do anything. And he went up to Big 12 or Big 10 media days his
Mhm,
first year, and I mean he had a train wreck of a media day appearance
mhm,
too. It wasn't good, and
right.
his tenure at UCLA followed that same path as well.
Yeah, the other thing too from that whole situation is, we talked about Kenny Dillingham, right,
Mhm.
at ASU. ASU has now got the pipeline that used to go to UCLA. They're getting Southern California kids like crazy. As a matter of fact, they are getting so many Southern California kids, they have a campus in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So, you know, you're getting one of the things ASU has always been kind of the school. If you want to leave California and you're a California, LA, Southern California kid,
Mhm.
going over to Tempe was everybody's. Al Michaels, who grew up in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
went to school at ASU. A
Yeah.
lot of a lot of kids who were from California, um, went to ASU.
Yeah.
So it was basically if you wanted to get out of LA and wanted to say I want to go away from school, and you
Mhm.
want to get out of California, you know, Tempe is not a bad place to land.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous area. It's basically Phoenix, suburban Phoenix.
Yeah. And
And go
I'd
ahead.
say it fits people from LA better. Like,
Yeah.
Utah,
Mhm.
I would say Utah is probably in a similar, like at least in
Right.
terms of distance footprint, but like
Mhm.
it's not the same. It doesn't have any type of the same feel as LA does.
No.
Tempe and Arizona State definitely does have a little more of that
Mhm.
LA feel to it.
Yeah. And so Kenny Dillingham has there's a major high school in Los Angeles called Mater Day.
Hmm.
Mater Day is a Catholic school. It's a private school. Year in and year out, they are one of the best high school football teams, and
Yeah.
actually just athletic programs in all of college sports or high school sports. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Back in the day, back um, not too long ago, um, they they were basically a feeder school to USC
Yeah.
and UCLA. You know, the kids that didn't get to go to SC would go to UCLA.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Matt Leinart was Mater Day quarterback.
If I remember correctly, I think Bryce Young was originally committed to USC before he
Yeah,
switched to Alabama.
yeah,
While
and
he was
he's a Mater Day
yeah.
kid too. Um, so if UCLA can't go down the street and recruit at Mater Day anymore, and Kenny Dillingham is getting everybody out of Mater Day that USC seemingly isn't anymore. As a matter of fact, there were more kids went to Alabama out of out of Mater Day than went to UCLA,
Yeah.
um, which was crazy. But hey, it is what it is.
Hmm.
Um, you can't lose. And we talked about this ad nauseum in the last week or so about how important relationships of coaches in high schools are. Well, if you lost that connection between Mater Day and some of the other schools in Southern California, and they're going, to Big Ten schools. Well, USC and UCLA are Big Ten schools now, but you know what I'm talking about. If they're going to Michigan, if they're going to, Alabama and the SEC, and they're bypassing, universities in their entire, in their neighborhood where their parents could go every week and watch them play. What are you going to do?
And
You gotta rebuild that, and the only way to rebuild is tear down what you've already screwed up.
I think what people lose in the NIL shuffle is like money. Money definitely does matter for a lot of people. Like don't get that twisted. It
Right.
matters, but you're also talking about like a certain level of like the 5 stars and the
Hmm.
high 4 stars. That's where you're
Right.
talking like big money, where the money can really make a difference.
Right.
In the ground where UCLA is recruiting, they're still in a spot where relationships matter, like maybe even more than money, because everybody's on a pretty level playing field in terms of money for the guys that they're going after. Those,
Right.
those upper three, middle three, low
Hmm.
4 star recruits, that kind of recruiting base, money matters. But when you're all playing in the same ballpark in terms of
Hmm.
money, an extra $50,000 a year isn't going to make you choose UCLA versus somewhere where your high school coach has a really good relationship with this guy, and
Oh,
they
Kenny
know
Dillingham.
yeah, and they know the way how you're going to get developed and stuff
Hmm.
over there, and they trust them to develop you more, because NFL money is a lot different than college money,
Hmm.
and anybody who's selling you a dream otherwise is lying to you in
Right.
terms of recruiting.
Yep. And that's why Kenny Dillingham spends a great deal of his time in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and yeah, they'll go to Texas and they'll go and recruit. But
Yep.
at the end of the day, the UCLA gig is not a bad gig
No.
if and there's a lot of ifs there, if they choose to um, start over, tear
Hmm.
it down, and build it back. Um, with the fact that we have been all over this one, with the fact that the portal, you can change things drastically quickly. If you get a good coach and a good athletic, infrastructure,
Hmm.
then there's no reason why
Yeah.
UCLA can't get there. And just for not for nothing, UCLA in their Olympic sports have not fallen.
No.
That they're still competitive in all that, but
Hmm.
they're not competitive in basketball anymore, and they're not competitive in football anymore.
No. Which is impressive, because they made a pretty big investment in Mick Cronin as
Hmm.
their head basketball coach after he
Yeah.
got them to the Final Four in 2020,
Right.
and he did a good job for I think a year or two after that, and then
Mm-hmm.
after that year or two, really when Johnny Juzang left to go to the
Mm-hmm.
NBA,
Yeah.
you kind of felt the decline of that basketball program start as
Right.
well.
And they just couldn't catch up,
Hmm.
and that's again that's on the athletic department, and that's genuinely why a great many schools in the Pac-12 had problems, and didn't keep the I mean,
Hmm.
it hurt me for a conference that was over 100 years old to go into the day, into the dust because of their own stupidity.
Yeah. Well, another program that made a move at head coach that at least from a pure optics standpoint
Hmm.
feels like they're in a better spot than UCLA is, was Virginia Tech, and firing Brent Pry after he
Yeah,
started at 3 as well.
yeah,
Just a abysmal and excusable loss to Old Dominion, and
hmm,
a press conference following that loss that, if he wasn't already done after that loss to Old Dominion, boy, that press conference should have definitely did it for him.
yeah.
He sounded like a guy that was in, year one, not your number 3. I think it
Right.
is for him.
The we're gonna get going here in a few minutes, but um, uh, Virginia Tech is the one school, other than obviously Clemson and FSU, where football does still matter.
Hmm.
Now they've got a tremendous engineering program, and there's a lot of they've gone real tech at
Hmm.
Virginia Tech, no pun intended. But it still means something in Blacksburg to play football,
Yeah.
and so yeah, they're not going to sit around and let somebody screw up the program.
Yeah.
That's and that was Beamer ball forever,
Hmm.
uh, and going way back when. So there's a culture there that isn't far unlike um, West Virginia,
Yeah.
where they've got the passion. By the way, and I apologize for this, and as we get ready to go here, um, I personally did not mention that what a phenomenal game West Virginia and Pitt had this
Oh, yeah.
past weekend in the backyard brawl when they went into overtime.
He got
Uh,
overshadowed by Georgia and Tennessee.
yeah,
So,
probably. No,
but it was still really, that one went to overtime too.
yeah, it did.
So
So full marks to the bragging rights go to the Mountaineers now,
especially
and
after they lost their best player
yeah,
and they lost to Ohio the week prior.
right, yeah.
That's a really really good job by Rich Rodriguez and to be able to get them to bounce back.
I'm happy for Rich. I think he never should have left
Yeah,
West Virginia. That move
yeah,
from West Virginia to Michigan made no sense.
yeah.
But I'm happy for him. I'm
Hmm.
happy for that program, and they signed a 10-year deal, but it doesn't start until 2028, where they're gonna the backyard brawl will they'll be played at least for a decade,
Yeah,
but they're gonna have a little 3-year absence, but
but that's the way it
Mhm.
should be. Is that
Yeah,
those rivalries like that need to stick around.
yeah, that's what college football is all about.
Mhm. I did want to clarify. I said optically when talking about UCLA versus Virginia Tech.
Uh-huh.
Is what I meant by that was you turn on a UCLA football game and there's like 500 people in the Rose Bowl. You
Mhm.
still turn on a Virginia Tech football game and they're still packing out Lane Stadium.
Mhm.
Doing Enter Sandman, all that stuff. And then from a pure talent standpoint, Kyron Drones was really good last year. Everybody had picked him as kind of a sleeper team in the ACC to go on a run because they believed in the talent roster that Virginia Tech had accumulated. And so just from talent and fan base buy-in perspectives, purely football side of things, Virginia Tech feels like they're in a world's better place than UCLA is, which feels like it's insane to say given the history of UCLA versus Virginia Tech.
Well, as we get out of here, just for the record, our Twitter followers have taken to attacking Big 12 rant. Don't do that, guys. Come on, be nice. Play nice. We don't want we don't the guy made a statement, or I don't know, gal, whomever made a statement, and you know I'll let them argue it. That point, I'm not going there. So anyway, all right. Final last thoughts here as we get on a nice Tuesday afternoon here, which
Oh,
clearly looks like Tuesday. It looks like a great day for golf up where you're at today.
yeah. I played golf yesterday.
Hmm.
What's it called? The Oh God, I just had something, and that's what I was going to go for.
Hmm.
Not football related, but the Boston Red Sox.
Hmm.
They start a series here today. To be honest with you, I forget against who, but their final stretch. I believe it's the Oakland Athletics are coming to town. But this final stretch, they lost some crucial games to the Yankees over the weekend, and they are now in danger of missing the playoffs. They're kind of on the bottom half of that AL wild card race, only a couple games up. They really need I really need the Red Sox to play well this week and heading into next week when they face, I believe their final two series are against the Blue Jays and then the Tigers. So
Yeah,
they
not exactly teams you want to be playing at this time.
no,
Um, let's see. I'm looking real quick to see where the Red Sox. Oh, yeah, the Athletics are in town. Uh, So this is
yeah,
Tuesday. So
it's
then they'll have the weekend series that
against Tampa Bay.
yeah begins the final week of the season,
Yep.
the regular season. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck
That's a deal.
to the Red Sox and Red Sox Nation as they get ready for a big weekend,
Yeah.
and we'll talk some baseball too coming down the road. So stay tuned. Um, so I hope that Matt, for your sake, that the Red Sox can take advantage of the Athletics.
Yeah. They
Uh,
that's what they have. They have 6 games against the Athletics, and then they followed up with the Rays in this weekend series. Those are 6 games where you feel like you've got to win those series headed into
mhm,
the series
yep.
against Toronto and Detroit.
And Tampa Bay is about to be sold. So this is the swan song for Matt Silverman and the tempestuous relationship he's had with the Bay Area. But anyway,
I do
all
think
right,
it's funny
go ahead.
these teams when they get sold, like I
Mhm.
I think fans just automatically expect like ownership to just be like, yeah, we're all in. Kind of like when the Mets got
Right.
sold to Steve Cohen, that change in philosophy. I think everybody kind of expects that to happen. They expected
Mhm.
that with the Baltimore Orioles and the young core that they had. They're like, well,
Right.
we've got new ownership now. Look how bought in they are. And then you see what they did last offseason and the offseason prior. You're like, okay, never mind. We were sold a lie. Turns out
Yeah.
they have similar motives and they just want to make money as well.
I do know that the ownership group that is getting involved with the race, there's no reason to feel that what they'll do is they'll keep Andrew Friedman. Oh no, oh shoot, I'm blanking on the guy's name. It's the GM down there.
Is
Anyway,
Ben Sherrington?
honestly, I don't know right at the moment. So you could be saying the right name. I still wouldn't know. But my point being that they realize that the way that the race have been running their operation is not bad. All you have to do is sink a little bit more money into spending on a couple of free agents and keeping the players that you have, and you'll be fine. So yeah, I think that they're going to keep the baseball operations still baseball operations because they do a pretty good job over there. If they just had a little bit more money to spend on a player here, a player there, they I think they'd be fine.
I do find it interesting because the Rays have they picked and chose their spots and
Hmm.
they showed a willingness to spend
Hmm.
money from time to time. They made a respectable offer to Aaron Judge. They made a
Hmm.
respectable offer to Freddie Freeman.
Sure.
But they picked and chose their spots when the
Hmm.
offer free agents. But it was just the players that they chose were so few and far between, and
Right.
people that were never going to realistically pick the Tampa Bay
Hmm.
Rays to play baseball for.
Right. Well, we'll see what goes for the Red Sox and the Rays and everybody else over the weekend because
Mhm.
you only got one more weekend of real baseball, boys and girls, until we get to the hunt for October, and we'll have some fun with that as well.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Matt, thank you as always, my friend.
Enjoyed it.
And we shall see you all tomorrow around noon. And who knows, we may even talk some baseball, John. Okay. Until that time, everybody, have a wonderful day. And for Matt, I'm Jim, and we'll see you